All right. Should be good to go now. Check. Diamond, can you hear us? All right, cool. All right, well, welcome everybody. Got another day of interesting happenings in the world. So we'll be covering a lot of different current events. I got Bodie Bodenheimer here, F-16 pilot, F-4 pilot, OV-10 pilot, also known as my dad. And we're going to be breaking down a lot of basically the current events, but we'll be using a lot of Bodie's perspectives from his career. We'll probably get into some leadership stuff as well. A lot of people have said they're just interested in hearing more from Bodie and just hearing more about fighter aviation in general and, you know, what it takes to get to those levels and some entertaining stories that you might have as well. So let's see. I guess we'll start out here. We got a few questions that have come in. So right now, as of, I think this actually took place yesterday morning, 9 a.m., F-18 shoots the rudder off of an Iranian tanker. And that tanker is drifting, doing its thing. They probably have a way of commandeering it, getting it good to go. But what are your thoughts? Can you walk us through, you know, you've operated with the Navy before, you've done joint operations, just from a fighter pilot perspective, what this mission might have been like and your kind of overall take on it?
It was nothing short of awesome. Can you imagine ever in your wildest dreams as a fighter pilot going, hey, you're going to go out and shoot the rudder off of Iranian oil tanker? You're going, wow. But that just shows you our training. We train for all kinds of things. And because we train so well and we have the money and the equipment to train well, when you're asked to shoot the rudder off of a tanker, you go, okay, here we go. So I can only imagine the randomness of you being airborne at that time when that mission was called in. That pilot was probably going, yes, I get to do one of the most unique things in the world. I mean,
totally.
It was like when the submarine shot the torpedo to blow up one of the Iranian ships. That's the first torpedo that sunk a ship since World War II. So anyway, you can imagine they were launching out to prepare to do any kind of mission that might be asked, interdiction, to drop bombs somewhere, to get a fast attack boat. No. We need you to shoot the rudder off an oil tanker. I mean, that's fantastic. So that F-18 pilot, he had to be beaming. And, you know, it's just like strafing a target. We practice strafing on the ground. We have giant parachutes, you know, we put up, and you shoot at those parachutes, and they have what's called acoustical scores. And it counts the supersonic bullets as they go through to see how well you hit.
Oh, it's counting the sound waves?
Counting the shock waves.
Wow.
Every little sonic shock waves that comes through each bullet. So you shoot 30 bullets, and it'll detect 20 shock waves. Hey, 20 hits, which is pretty good. 20 out of 30 is very not a bad pass. So
but you usually got 29 out of 30 each time.
Well, I have gotten 0 out of 30 time or two, but yeah, usually you get 20 to 28, something like that. But what you're also worried about now, here is something you haven't done before. You don't have any perspective. He's going to strafe a giant oil tanker. You know, I mean, it's just not something you train for,
right?
But they're such a well-trained pilot, he can do it. But the distances and all that kind of thing, because when you practice strafing on our ranges we have all around the U.S., you know exactly how far out you are. You don't want to shoot too far out; it'll be ineffective. Shoot too close in, you can get yourself fragged by pieces of the rudder flying off and going up. So it had to be one of the most interesting and rewarding missions.
Oh, so cool.
We don't know how many passes he made, but I bet you it's probably just one pass and he got it. Who knows? I mean, but can you imagine that rolling in straight and just hit the rudder?
Yeah.
And that had to be, it's a tribute to that pilot's skill, to that F-18, such a great aircraft. And I'll guarantee you, U.S. pilots could do that. A few other countries' pilots could do that, but we could just do it in a heartbeat.
Boom!
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I put myself in the shoes of that pilot. You get the call, you know, we're going to intercept a tanker, and you don't know what that's going to entail, but you're ready to go. You know, the jets are loaded up with high explosive incendiary rounds, likely. That's what I would assume. That's what the combat loadout is, because some people have asked, they've said, how could a 20 millimeter take out that big of a piece of metal on the back of an oil tanker? But a big part of that is those rounds have exploding tips, right?
Just like a small hand grenade in each bullet.
Jeez. Yeah. So it's not going to take very many of those to mess up those bindings or whatever's connecting the rudder to the ship. That's not going to take much. One pass and you should be good to go.
I would think so. Yeah, just put yourself in his shoes, okay? Your new target. You know, he was planning on doing something totally different. Your new target. shoot the rudder of the Iranian tanker. Can you imagine? Say again?
Yes.
Say again?
Yeah.
You may do what? I can only
so
imagine.
awesome.
And it just attribute to how great our pilots are.
Yeah, 100%. Because the likeliest mission is a drone, right? Is some sort of a Shahed drone coming out of Iran, and then he's like, "All right, you're ready to go for that," because that's happened before. An F-35 took out one of those drones, so that's likely what you're thinking is going to happen, right?
Yeah, most likely. Not shoot a rudder. It's just so rewarding and enlightening and entertaining. That's might not be the right word to use, but there were no fatalities on that tanker, most likely.
Unless someone was hanging onto the rudder.
Unless somebody's back there before he shouldn't have been. And now you got a big old giant tanker floating around without a rudder. I mean, he probably should have abated by, done well by the blockade. I tried to run the blockade.
Yeah. Well, and just for some context for everybody. So if you haven't seen my video this morning, when this stream is done, go check that out. But I talked about how this actually happened, and the U.S. Navy is going to give multiple warnings to the ship. I would guess a dozen or more warnings of, hey, turn around, stop going where you're going. You're not allowed to go into the Iranian ports due to the blockade that's in effect right now. And they're just not going to listen, not going to listen, not going to listen. And then, the word comes down, all right, we got to disable this tanker. What are our most agile tools that give us the most options? And that's going to be fighters, right? Something that we would train to when I was flying the F-15E was out over the Whiskey areas off the coast of North Carolina. We would do different tactics with ships. Sometimes we'd get ships that would be in on it, at least after they'd unloaded their cargo. We'd let them know we're going to do this. And we'd practice passes that were basically stop, telling them to stop. There's things you can do with your flares. So you fly over the bridge, releasing flares. If you fly if you fly behind the back of the boat, that's just a recce pass. So that's in international waters. That's just a way to determine where that boat is from, looking for the flag, the name, and then you can just send that name back to higher headquarters. They'll tell you exactly where it's from, who's on it, whether the guys, where the country of origin is from for the tankers. And then if you fly over the bridge, in front of the bridge, over the ship, that's an act of, you're basically saying, if you don't stop right now, you're going to be shot. So I don't know if they decided to do that in this scenario where they kind of they ramped it up like that. And then there's other things you can do with flares. So you fly over the bridge once, you better stop and turn around. You fly over with flares, that means there's going to be kinetic action against your boat unless you do what you're told. But these ship captains, I just wanted your opinion on this. So they're just flat out not responding at all. Are they just pretending? Are they playing dumb? Like, instead of even saying anything, they're just not saying anything. Is that the instructions they've been given? Don't say anything to the U.S. Navy. That's
probably it. I mean, they're in complete communication. The Navy is talking to them, and whether they respond or not. So they probably knew they were about to be fired on.
Yeah.
But they were also being by however the command and control is by the fragmented Iranian leadership. They said, no, you're coming through. You're going to do it. You're going to go. We're going to test this thing again. That's what they're doing. And you think the Iranians hierarchy care about the people on that ship? So they were listening, and they knew for whatever they were coerced to do it, or they were so hardcore agreeing with the Iranian hierarchy, they were just going to do it. If I could say one thing, though, the gun that they shot with out of the F-18, these things are amazing. You only have about 5 seconds of bullets. 5 seconds. You got about 5, and it's similar to the F-16 and the F-4 gun, and it's amazing. It's just a Gatling gun, and it shoots 100 bullets a second. So, when you see TV shows, it shows that the fire going pop, 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 pop. No, it's like there's 100 bullets. What? And it's that fast. One squeeze of the trigger, and you get close to 100 bullets out. He probably leaned on it and gave him a couple hundred.
I would say, yeah. I mean, you might as well. They kind of made it sound like it was a half-second burst. I don't know. As a fighter pilot, you're going to give it a nice.
I'm going to lean on that one a little bit. I mean, come on, but a half second of 20 millimeter does a lot of damage. That's 50 or more bullets with a small little explosive on the end of each one. Yeah, and a very accurate delivery. Oh yeah.
Oh man. So what did it feel like to you when you were shooting the gun in the F4, the F-16? Can you walk us through just kind of what that felt like?
Well, that's cool. You practice in a very controlled situations. You've got these big ranges all around the U.S. where it's safe to fire them, so the ricochets or whatever, it's not going to go and hurt somebody way down range. And like I said, you have big, giant parachutes tied up. So you're flying a fairly low altitude thing. Most of it was low altitude strafing, and you can do high altitude, but the low altitude, because you're just kind of down there amongst them, so you can really see what's going on. And you would shoot about 2,000 feet away from the target. Now, that's when you had to, for safety, stop shooting. So you'd start a little bit before that, and you would only just you squeeze off 50 bullets, maybe 100 bullets if you really had some extra bullets to shoot that day. And you just come around, and literally it's just like a big bullseye on a giant 30-foot parachute, just a big bullseye. So it's nothing. And we call it the pipper. That's in the magic stuff that's floating around that you see on the on your TV shots, the magic stuff in the HUD, the heads-up display. And all you do is that thing is going to show you where the bullet's going to go. And you just fly it over and you line that up, and it's kind of drifting around. You're doing stuff. The plane's bouncing. You're going fast. Hot days, it's bumpy as heck. And it's just moving around, and you line it up as best you can and let it rip. And it's pretty good.
Let it rip. That could be the name of this episode. Yeah, but you nailed it. It's bumpy. You're fighting the thermals and things like that, and you're trying to keep that little dot that's on the pipper. It's one little pixel basically that you're keeping right on top of something. So, and
to get all the bullets within a 30-foot thing was almost impossible. You just, and all the bullets are not going to fly exactly the same, but they're pretty close. But they would still go with the perfect pass. You would still have bullets scattered over about a 20-foot area. Yeah, and expect some of the bullets that they shot at the rudder, most hit it.
There's no sound.
Sorry, folks.
Oh no, these aren't those types. These should be fine without that. Yeah, we're showing good sound on our end.
Maybe a problem here, folks. We're checking on our sound.
Okay, let's see. Should be good to go. That's all good. I mean, we could unplug it. It's gonna be terrible. I can hear. I think everybody's good. I think.
Yeah, people are saying it's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, super.
Yeah, we're showing
Sorry
good on
about
our
that.
end. Someone, do you have headphones or something where you can listen to us? You can also, if you have headphones that'll plug in. So I'm talking to the producer right now, everybody. You can plug into this P4. Okay, you can plug into this P4, by the way, and listen to us and make sure that you can hear it. But we'll work on that for next time.
Yeah, no, you're good.
All right. We got a troll in the chat that tried to stop the stream. You can't stop us. That guy was definitely from the IRGC.
Never interrupt a war story.
So this says, what is the feeling when firing on an enemy fighter jet? Or firing on enemy in a fighter jet. So you kind of mentioned that, kind of what it feels like to shoot the gun. I'll say from some of my experience in Afghanistan, when you're targeting like a moving object, a lot of times it's amazing how far away you are. In an F-16 or we were in F-15's, but you flew the F-16. The A-10 can get pretty close to these things, but like an F-8 and an F-18 is actually not a bad slow speed fighter either. It can go pretty slow compared to some of the other jets and maneuver at slower speeds. But in an F-15E, I remember when you're tracking a car or something like that, you're so far away. It's like, holy, the pipper dot it's a tiny, tiny dot. And then the target is even tinier than that. When you're that far away, you're starting to track this thing from 2 miles away, and you're opening and you're shooting at about a mile away, which is wild. So I just saw a super chat. Might think I'm crazy, but I would love to still be in the military and able to be a part of the operation. God bless and protect our service members. Wow, that's really cool. Really nice.
You betcha.
Someone is giving a shout out there. That's awesome. But yeah, we kind of answered that. What is the feeling when firing on enemy in a fighter jet?
Can I throw in one more about that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like in the old F4 days, how you would train for air-to-air fighting with the gun. And we had one of the F4s would be a dart toe. We call it the dart. And it was just a metallic, it's about 15 feet long, kind of like a big dart, the head of a big dart. And it would be towed behind another F4. And then you would come in and and it was metallic, so your radar could actually lock up on it. And you get computations and you'd shoot at this little tiny thing. And all it took was one hit. If you got one hit on it, that was a success, because you would have had a lot more had that been a regular sized airplane. Yeah. And that was so much fun. Of course, it was sometimes hard to get guys to volunteer to tow the dart because he's got his buddies right behind him. The dart's 1,000 feet behind him.
Wow.
And they're shooting bullets at this thing. And he's pulling the dart. But that was cool.
That's a ballsy move.
Oh, it was, I tell you. And I'll never forget one. I was there again. I was a second lieutenant, and I've shot it at the dart many times, and usually you'll hit it. Sometimes you won't. But the first time I rolled in there to do it, and you lean on it. You do as much as you can. You lean on it, and you just look like a bird feathers flying everywhere. But whoa, and you would call twos off with a hit if that's what you'd call, and then someone else would go in and score it. And so I saw because you wanted to get out because debris from it could come back and hit you.
Yeah,
because you're kind of turning, but still hit you. And then I remember the guy that went in the score went, "Oop, dart's gone." I love that. It was gone. I love that one.
So you could actually blow off the chain or whatever that it was connected to.
Yeah, it hit enough to, and then the tow guy said it jerked the heck out of the airplane because one bullet must have hit the tow cable. Because there would have been some parts of the dart hanging on it. No, he cut the cable. That's what wasn't me. That was luck. I wasn't aiming at the cable. I was trying to hit the dart.
Yeah,
it came off.
Dang, that's wild. Yeah. Well, the practice strafing we did before deployment was there was a tank. I never did the air-to-air stuff, but we had one where there was a tank towing another tank.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
And the key was don't shoot the lead tank.
Don't shoot the lead tank.
And
it was banned. There was somebody in that one.
Yeah. Well, I think, and we were training rounds, right? So they're just like lead or whatever, it's not going to explode, but you don't want to shoot it while someone's in there towing the thing. And it had been done before where, especially some of the new guys in the squadron. And again, there's a lot going on in a fighter jet. So there's things coming at you, things flying at you. And then you have to remember, all right. And it might sound crazy to people out there, but remembering which tank to shoot, that is something that you got to have. Sometimes you would write it down on your knee board, like shoot the back tank. Don't shoot I would sometimes honestly draw a picture, and I'd have a picture of a little mini tank with a chain and then another tank behind it. And I would put a big X on the front tank and I'd have it on my knee pad. Because in the heat of the moment, I mean, people think it's stupid, but think about this. You're in a fighter jet going 500 miles an hour, screaming at the ground. You're breathing, you're pumping your blood back up to your head. You're pulling G's. Next thing you know, you roll in and you got to do it quick. It's being scored. People are judging you. It's a lot of pressure. And so even in the heat of the moment, the best fighter pilots can forget that. So I was like, all right, how do I think there was a time where I had 2 pictures on each leg because I just didn't want to be that guy. I never did. I always strafed the back tank. But again, I wasn't afraid to be very obvious with myself of like, all right, strafe the damn back tank, Neo.
and those are good points. I mean, is it a dynamic, intense environment in training? And then triple that in combat when you were flying, triple that. And there's a lot of, you would go, in my day, you stayed alive by going fast and low. And it's still somewhat today, but there's other things you don't have to be so low. But we would come in screaming and you're not seeing things far out there. And you're doing all this called by dead reckoning. You just heading and airspeed because we didn't have quite the magic systems you got now. And you hit a point, and then you pop up, and now you've got, as you pop up, pull the plane up to an altitude that you're pre-briefed that you're going to roll into, expend your ordnance. And now as you're going up, you're looking for the target. And trust me, it's just a few seconds. And then you have to pull down fairly quickly and go. And you could miss ID targets. We've blown up more trees and bushes. There it is.
Yeah.
Oh, crap. That's not it. But I mean, it's that fast. And that's in peacetime. Imagine doing that in wartime when everybody's shooting at you from everywhere.
Yeah. Jeez. So that's what these F-18 pilots, the pressure that's on them. And I think it was daytime, which that's helpful. That helps. But they could do it at nighttime too. Yep. But that adds another layer of complexity. Strafing at night, super dangerous in fighter, especially in mountainous terrain. Probably better to do it on the ocean, I would say. Sea level, a little easier to compute your distances and all that stuff. But the fact that they, had to roll in and do this, the pressure's on. You don't want to mess it up. And they did a great job. So this is a kind of stories that I think we'll be talking about for years and years. The entire Iran war, all these different engagements and things like that. So that's another reason why I'm excited to have the channel, to have the Max Afterburner channel and do these podcasts, is like, all right, a place for people to come back to and see what was going on during that time. But it's these types of things are not normal, right? These are,
I still say that I would love to have been able to see that the fighter pilot's face when he said, "Okay, you're going to shoot the rudder off a tanker." Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Be so fun. Be so fun. All right, so Bodhi, Iran's obviously trying to choke the Strait of Hormuz right now. So from a fighter pilot's perspective, what's the real game changer that's going to flip the script on this militarily, fighter pilot wise, military system? What pressure is going to give the leverage to get what the U.S. wants in the negotiations?
Well, and that's the $64,000 question. Do we have to use kinetic energy bombing again, or will the economic pressures go to provide the same thing? The sad part is the Ayatollahs, the leaders of the IRCG, they could care less how much their people suffer. They could care less how long this goes. They in their mind, they win if we stop. And we said that many times. So we may have to go back to that. But right now there's quite a bit of negotiation going on where no matter what you hear or what you read, there has been constant negotiations going on to make this happen. I mean, our administration and our leaders are not just standing by doing nothing on that side of the house. And from our CIA and the Mossad and all those folks doing all that good thing. I think now, but yesterday I would have thought it would take kinetic, by kinetic, I mean dropping bombs and continuing that going. But now I do think perhaps there's some factions inside Iran that are maybe seeing the light, and they want to maybe fracture that leadership a little more and come to a diplomatic solution. And that will take a week or two because like I say, they're not communicating with cell phones. If they turn the cell phone on, a bomb's probably going to come right down to that signal. Yeah. And so they communicate handwritten notes or carrier pigeons. I don't know how they're communicating. Who knows? But I think there is a chance now that could possibly happen. But at some point, we may have to go back to this. That would be great to be able to end this thing now. But it would also, if we end it now, let's hope that there is, and within a couple of 3 years, the Iranian people will still be able to take back their country. Yeah.
I think you hit on a whole bunch of really good points there. So what we saw today was Ghalibaf. He's the parliamentary speaker, and they were letting him go to the negotiations. Mm-hmm. And then that's who JD Vance and Witkoff and Kushner wanted to negotiate with. And then Iran pulled him. Mm-hmm. So they pulled him. They won't let him go to the negotiations anymore. Yeah. So here's what I'm kind of thinking for us to kind of war game out. It seems like there's factions of the IRGC that are incredibly hardline, and the only thing they know is force, kill people. They've been putting death teams into the population, crushing anybody who has a Starlink. I mean, these are assassins. They're mafia assassins, right? So they see someone like Ghalibaf, who's maybe he is someone who's a little more reasonable. They pull him out. They're like, nope, we don't want reasonable. And so it's kind of like, instead of the Ayatollahs now, actually who's in charge are the hardline IRGC. So for whatever reason, it looks to me like, the Majabta, the son of the original Ayatollah, he's in the background, maybe hard to access. They might not be able to talk to him. They might literally be having him like passing notes through third parties. No one can actually go talk to him because they're afraid of whatever. And so who's going to step in and fill that power vacuum? I mean, it just makes sense that it's going to be some hardline IRGC dude, right? And then that guy's going to start shaping policy in a way which is just going to be more hardline IRGC stuff.
And people are second guessing that now, and they'll be second guessing this for months and years to come, unless we magically get the great outcome we want in the next few weeks of the IRCG removed as an
IRGC.
Yeah. Excuse me.
They're probably fine either way. They don't.
So yeah, that's the $64,000 question. Yesterday I thought we were going to have to start the bombing up again, but it looks like today maybe negotiations could lead to something. But I still think it's by by the end of this month, there's going to be some resolution to this thing.
Yeah. Well, I think the interesting thing too is, there's parts of the corporate media that are like, oh, it's a quagmire. Oh no, like it's a huge quagmire. And it's like, actually, no, it's a naval blockade, which is one of the smartest exercises of military power that there is, right? Because you don't have troops that are on the ground, boots on the ground. You don't have any of that crap. And you've got hard military power right there to make the regime think twice. But what we saw over a couple days ago was when we hit those boats, I can't remember what exactly chronologically what happens first, but we took down 6 or 7 of their fast attack craft, and then they launched. It was when I think Trump announced the Project Freedom to escort ships through the Strait. Then they launched a whole bunch of ballistic missiles at UAE, and I mean that basically breaks the ceasefire, right? But I don't know. It's just interesting to me. It's like one hand isn't talking to the other, or there's something behind the scenes that we don't know.
And it took great restraint from our side,
yeah,
not to just go right back to that massive bombing campaign, which we certainly could have done off of one ballistic missile flying, much less a few.
Mm-hmm.
They did hardly any damage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still think the administration now is giving the peace a chance the way it should do. But there's only a certain amount of time you can do this. If they keep pulling the same old tricks, the same old way of deny, lie, and stall, that won't last more than another week or two.
Yeah. But I think the fact that we are showing this tactical restraint, this strategic restraint, it probably shows there's something behind the scenes going on that's more impactful than just going in with Strike Eagles again and dropping weapons again, right? That phase kind of is completed, it seems like to me, like Operation Epic Fury, that phase complete. Now it's like, okay, we might move into something else, but there's other things going on that you don't name, that you don't say what's going on. A lot of things maybe behind the scenes that are at this point, the military in Iran is decimated, gone. Now they're a proxy network. They are a terror force. And so how do you fight proxy networks and terror forces? Well, in Afghanistan, we tried to fight those proxy networks and terror forces with hard military power for 20 plus years, which is not a good strategy.
And that's a quagmire.
That's a quagmire. That's Iraq and Afghanistan quagmires when you try to use military force, which is built to take out a military, on an insurgency and on terrorism. Like there's other things you need to do. There's special operators, there's CIA, there's Mossad. There's a lot of way better options than, just continually militarily. But I think that's what people can't really connect the dots on, but that's by design, right? We can't know everything that's going on with that operation.
Exactly. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. If things were to kick back off militarily, let's say there's some limited strikes, what do you think that would look like in Iran?
I think shutting down their power grid, blowing up bridges, that's certainly a possibility. But I do think first you would be specifically targeting some of the remaining hardliners and their ability to project any kind of power. So there's a few more people need to either resign or get out of there or go live on an island somewhere before we can really get the free Iranians to run their country. So I think it'd be a target across the board going after in this lull. I'm sure we found out a few more things from our CIA and Mossad where maybe there's some more targets we could give some more attention to.
Yeah.
But there's not much left of the military. So it'd be the command and control, which is almost I still can't believe after all this, they're still in our face with statements about the aggressive United States attacking free Iran. I mean, it just really, Well,
it's the propaganda wing, right? And I think that's the thing that Iran has done, I guess you could say, well, in quotes. Like that's all they can really do, right? Is put out the propaganda. We've seen the AI videos and things like that. So it's not surprising that they're going to fall back on that. It's kind of like the guy who loses a fight and just can't stop talking trash about how the sun was in his eye or sawdust or, whatever. It's just this kind of gross, I look at it like just a kind of a disgusting mindset. But that comes all the way from the Ayatollah himself. I mean, if you look at the Constitution of Iran, they say that the Ayatollah is the true representative of God. And then when the Ayatollah took power, he basically intertwined into the constitution full power and ability to do whatever he wants to the country. And so when you have one guy whose brain is obviously twisted, and then that becomes the entire foundation of the entire country, I feel like this has happened before, right? It's happened before.
There's plenty of times in history where that's come to pass.
Yeah.
And they do that by having those underneath them so well taken care of that they're going to support it. If anyone even gets remotely out of line, they're gone. And I don't mean fired; they're gone. Yeah, and you have to, and probably every couple of years, 2 or 3 would be gone for no reason, just to make sure everybody knew.
Everyone knew. Make an example.
If you want to keep living this nice style life that I'm giving you, you have got to support me, and everybody beneath you's got to support me.
Wow.
And that's sad but true. That's happened in history so many times.
So many times. I mean, Hitler, obviously, it happened there, and that was an obvious one. But even like a little more subtle one is like the King of England, right? When the U.S. wanted freedom from the king, that guy was like, well, I own everything. I own your colonies, and you're going to pay me taxes. You don't get any representation. And they were, I don't know the extent, but they were basically raping and pillaging, in a sense, the colonies, right? The British troops were coming in. And so that's the grossness that happens when one person's brain gets control of an entire country and a system. And then in Iran, it was their actual military that they have a real hard military for the Middle East. They have a decent fighting force for the Middle East, but that was all built off of one person's protection mindset of how do I not lose power? It wasn't how do I protect the free Iranian people and give them a country to thrive in and have deterrence for. It was more of how do we completely execute my will across this country, bleed the people dry, squeeze their ability to do anything besides listen to what I have to say, right? Kind of like a king. But in this case, the kings had this fundamental, weird, clerical radicalism behind them, instead of with England, seems to be more taxes and money driven, right?
Sure. And just to go a little bit further on that, my wife's sister, Debbie, in the Air Force, was stationed in Iran in the mid-'70s.
Oh.
She was in Iran. That's in the days when we were trying to buddy up to the Shah of Iran, and she was working refueling assets and military assets, ours and theirs, inside Iran.
Wow.
Before the fall of the Shah.
Yeah.
And then the Ayatollah came back and took over. So it went from, that's how fast that nation turned. Relatively so many more freedoms to boom, total lockdown. Yeah. And then once you get that to going, the only way you can stop it, an internal revolution won't do it, because they're too strong. They kill too many people. Yeah. I mean, the 30, 40,000 and before this war started, that's tip of the iceberg to what they've done over the past 40 years. Yeah. Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah. Who knows? 1 million?
Oh, but who knows?
Well, it's just wild to see how we were on the path, of being allies. The thing I researched a little bit was, and if anybody's from that area that's in the chat, you know better than us, you can throw a chat in there. But a lot of it was, how do we were basically pushing too hard for Western cooperation and capitalism, and with the Shah, and the Shah was exerting that too soon, too fast on their people, and then that's what kind of caused the revolution. And then the Ayatollah came in as like the savior of traditional Iranian values, which is, maybe that was nice for a few months, and then the guy showed his true colors. Okay, Bodhi, for leadership questions on this, what do you see from the leadership? Let's just start with, there's General or Admiral Cooper, Commander of CENTCOM, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, all the way to the president. And then General Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I know you've seen some of the press briefings and things like that. Just from your perspective of being an aviator, no politics involved, what kind of leadership do you see happening?
Well, let's start with Raising Cane. I mean, what a great call sign. General Kane, Raising Cane.
He's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Air Force
he's the top
general.
Military guy in the U.S. And the story was, he was working in President Trump's first term, and he as a 3-star. And I think he had already retired. And he was a mainly National Guard. And Trump knew him for his performance in some big operations prior. And he said, that's the warfighter I want to have. So he grabbed him, promotes him to 4 stars, and puts him above the entire military. And it turns out that was the greatest choice you could ever make, because he picked a guy who was a warfighter, a true warfighter.
Yeah.
Proven warfighter. People respected him. I didn't get to know him, but everyone that has met him said I would go to war with him in a second. And that's what you got to have. That's what you got to have. And you got to be smart. And so you go right down the line, and we have all the folks involved with the commander of CENTCOM. That's the big thing. That just got all the Army, Navy, Marines, and Air Force forces all combined, and he controls all of those. And that's Admiral Cooper, and he's doing a fantastic job. And you got this giant machine, and you bring them all together, all the services, and you get one goal. And that's what you have to have: one command point who's been given clear instructions from the civilian leadership down through Raising Cane and down all the way out to the combatant commander who's right there. And all these guys, it seems the stars have aligned. They're the kind of leaders that you need for a war like this. Now, we've always had great leaders, but these seem to just be specifically in lockstep. Now, and look at some of the bosses you've had out there, military, non-military. You've had some great ones that you do anything, and you've had some crappy ones. And that's the same in the military too. We have more great ones than crappy ones, but you have some that you're going, how did that person ever get it? But right now we've got the right team in place. Fine things, you've got some disrest, you've got some untrust, you've got things and you got some people that are underperforming. That's a tough leadership challenge. And you will have people who underperform. Yeah. And you got to fix that. You got to fix it. Yeah. And make that work. So your leadership has to be smart. They have to be worthy of being followed. And man, that's what we've got in power right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the thing to think of too is when you have that really good leadership, it reduces confusion. And that, confusion in a military environment is certain failure. And, it's just going to not work out. The mission is not going to go well. So when you have someone who's extremely good tactically, people have actually been shocked before when we've talked about how, Air Force colonels, even generals, are still qualified to fly F-18s. When the weapons systems officer went down, people were shocked that he was a colonel, right? And vice wing commander of a base in the Middle East. But that's how the Air Force does it. I'm sure it's the same in Navy flying squadrons, right? The leaders of those squadrons are all going to be frontline fighter pilots as well, it's pretty awesome that's the case.
They've got to lead from the front. You don't lead from the back. You
right.
got to lead from the point of the sword out there.
Right.
And I had some time as a general's aide in the Air Force. I mean, that's a double-edged sword. That's pretty cool, and then not so cool sometimes. But the 3-star that I was the aide from, 2 of them, General Kirk and then General Horner. General Horner, you may remember from Desert Storm. But anyway, when we went places, he flew in an F-16, and I flew in an F-16 with him. There's just one seat in that airplane. He flew that jet around, and we would, as we went to another base, we would try to set up. And we'd practice fighting some of the jets from that base on our way in. And so here's a 3-star. Most 3-stars, they didn't get near airplane controls. We flew in, and he dogfighted a little bit on the way in. Nice. We got our butts kicked every now and then too, but it was okay, and that's what he did. And that's the kind of leadership you want. But then, when the war kicks off, you're not going to have a 3-star up there on the point, but to have that colonel up there on the front, flying a frontline fighter in war, that is fantastic. And then what that guy did, how he stayed alive. Yeah. He's my hero.
Oh, for sure. Well, can you walk us through how you think that, what would your mindset be? Like you're a senior leader, you rose to the rank of colonel commanding a base. Let's say you're flying in an F-16. Let's just kind of frame this as a little hypothetical situation here. You're in Iran flying your F-16. You're the commander of a base. That if they get a hold of you, talk about a propaganda victory, especially if you're a commander. That's a even probably bigger propaganda victory. So let's say you take a shot, you punch out, you're on your way down. What goes through your mind, and how does that play out?
Well, yeah, it's And law enforcement will tell you this: you assess. You got to assess. Are you hurt? Are you making good decisions right now? As you're coming down, start putting it together. Everything's working. Hands working good. Feet are working good. I can see as you come down, and now you start surveying the countryside around you. And what you want to do, you're going down over hostile territory. And there could be some friendly civilians somewhere, but you don't know. So your idea is you pick the most desolate, vacant area you can, and you can steer your parachutes a bit towards that area.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm not sure. In our day, we even had a radio in our vest. In Vietnam, there was a couple of times guys coming down the parachute talking on the radio.
I heard about that. I think it was Serbia too, where the F-117 got shot down.
Yeah. Okay. And
he was already on the radio on the way down.
And now, I don't know the exact rules they're playing by there, because anytime you transmit a radio, that's good. You can talk to your buddies, but a bad guy can track you down too. And you're
a couple thousand feet above the ground. If that thing slips,
drop that thing, you go, oh, crap.
Dang it. The one job. Don't drop the radio.
Don't drop the radio. So anyway, you set yourself up, and I'm sure they're flying arms. So you just, you've got everything you need when you hit the ground. And you may have seen one of Max's stories. You've got a whole survival kit that's about 10 or 15 feet below you. You got a survival vest with some immediate stuff you need right away. And then in that kit, you've got some more things to include water. There may even be some money in there to bribe a local civilian. They have all kinds of survival stuff, your survival stuff. And so you make that plan as you get down, and you try to land correctly, because we're not trained parachutists,
Yeah.
And you can get hurt landing, and and I'm sure he got hurt landing though, because he had some injuries. And especially if it's night, you don't even know what's down there. You don't even know what you're going into.
Totally.
And then he hits that, and now you just got to have a plan. You hit the ground, and you hit the ground running. You want to get that survival kit, take it with you, take your parachute, try to hide it or take it with you, whatever the situation you think it ought to be. But it doesn't need to be laying out there in the open, so they can track you down. And then quickly make communication, make contact, and then with the friendlies. And you might not get it right away, depending on how far in you are. And now you start making your escape, survival, the SERI training, survival, escape, resistance, and invasion. I mean, that's what you plan that out. And we're trained well. I spend weeks in that. And it's hard training.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Yep.
And it was hard, but it was good training. So you let your training be your guide.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he looked around and went, I'm going up to higher ground. That's always a good place to be versus lower ground normally, but not if there's a military installation up there.
Right.
And so,
or no cover potentially too, if it's just a barren hillside and you can see it with a glint, something catches your watch or something.
Well, yeah, there you go.
So
that would be a personal thing. And I think anyone would respond as their own capabilities are to do that.
Yeah.
And they had, we always had places, if you get shot down in this area, and you can try to work your way to that area if we can't get you right away.
Right.
And we were able to get the front seater pretty quickly.
Yeah. And
the operation to get the back seater was nothing short of just miraculous and incredible. And that's fantastic. That's just on top of grabbing leaders out of Venezuela. That's on that level of expertise to get that person out of there.
Yeah.
So that I salute the rescue teams and that colonel. He did great.
Yeah. Well, the reports I'm seeing, just from behind the scenes info from some folks that probably know, is there's close to 200 Iranians that got Iranian commandos, quote unquote, that met their maker that night, from SEAL teams, Delta Force, pararescue. So it wasn't like Iran put up no resistance and we just went in and grabbed them and it was all, they couldn't figure out where he was. Iran is smart too, where they're zeroing in on things. They have drones as well that can do reconnaissance. They might be trying to fly some of those. So yeah, it's not like they didn't put up any resistance and we just walked in and grabbed them.
And, when that plane was shot down, I mean, there's going to be, I don't care how superior force is, there will be losses by the superior force. And whoever shot that plane down was instantly communicating, because their primary goal was to grab air crews.
Yeah.
They just could grab it. Shooting down an airplane doesn't change anything.
Right.
Grabbing an air crew for propaganda is something
Yeah.
they could use. So I'm sure
Yep.
they were putting the word out on that immediately. And you remember on TV when they interpret, I mean, the Iranians they need to get better interpreters for their propaganda, because they're interpreting their language to English.
Uh-huh.
And they said to all the people, you will receive a precious reward if you turn him in. Who interpreted that for him? Get a precious
A
reward.
precious reward.
Just say a boatload of money, but a precious reward.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, who translated for them? Just
Yeah. Well, I think that might actually highlight something interesting. The way that we see the front-facing Iranian regime with Agarachi, Ghalibaf, these ministers, they're meant to be talking pieces, mouthpieces to appeal to Western nations. And so the propaganda is really for the people of Iran themselves, where they want to, they've basically, I mean, they've killed off thousands of the, let's just say, smart rebels that are in the country that want to rise up and go up against the country of the regime. They've killed those people off. And so they've basically tried to dumb down their population as much as they can, hold them down and gaslight them. And so it's kind of weird. I bet I don't know, this is just me kind of hypothesizing. It's probably really weird the way they communicate with their people. It's not like they think they're smart. They want to talk to them like they're dumb. They want to talk down to them, kind of like building a little story. I mean, it's a kind of a cult, right? The cult's trying to stay in control. So to me, actually saying the precious reward plays right into how they've brought them in on this kind of evil story that they've created for their population. You know, it dovetails perfectly for me. If a cult leader is going to try to get their people to do something, it's going to be a precious reward. Just do exactly as we say. It's going to be so precious.
I know. Not laughing is just laughing at.
Well, we're laughing at how gross the regime is.
Exactly.
I mean, it just I mean, there's so many smart Persian people that are there. I mean, they're probably not listening to this right now because there's an internet blackout, but some of the families of the people that are there are listening to this, and they can relay this to them. Like we know, I think the smart people in the US know how much gaslighting and evil is a part of that regime at this point.
You know, if you and I were in Iran, this conversation, we'd be eliminated within minutes.
Yeah.
Eliminated, gone.
Yeah.
Gone. I mean, you know.
Yeah. Big Brother type stuff where there's supposedly a lot of cameras, listening devices. If you have a Starlink, they've got Starlink detectors where they're killing people with Starlinks. So, yeah. Well, I wanted to ask you, Bodhi, just international relations. You know, you've served as a leader in command of a base with thousands of people. I want to maybe we'll get to this story in a second too. You've done a lot of visits with Russians. You've had Russians to the base that you were in command of up in Alaska. But from a leadership perspective, what if you had the ability to kind of sit down with some of these Iranian leaders and you were part of this military negotiation? Let's say we got to that point where leaders from the US are talking to IRGC guys to try to divide up the Strait of Hormuz or whatever that may be. What would your position be?
Yeah, that's a tough one because let me first talk about working with the Russians. The Russians, and I got to host a Russian fighter pilot and his team at our base in Eielson. And, you know, there's Russian hardliners. This guy was as Western as anybody. I mean, we thought similarly. We could sit down and talk normally, get something. And then I have a ton of time in Southwest Asia where military to military, we get along better than civilian to civilian. We do, because they need us to try to. So talking to a military leader from a military guy, you would have some common ground to start with, but it's fragile in Southwest Asia, in Iran. So you could talk a little bit on that level of your shared experience and those kind of things. Sadly, and force is one of the few things recognized, and it would be hard. You stop and give it your best. You try to reach them on the level of the hardships that's going to go on to the people, but I don't think that'd fall on deaf ears. But we will, your force will be continuing to be attrited, removed. Try to get that part of them that has a belief, the reality that, hey, the military reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can't win this if we stay and fight.
Yeah.
But if we quit, yeah, you win. So that's if I wish I had the answer for that one, Max. I don't.
Yeah. Well, if we quit, if we just fully pulled out of there totally today, Iran would still be set back a lot.
Oh, we would have achieved most of our mission.
Yeah.
We could leave today and they could try to start back right away. And then if they start any nuclear stuff, there'd be explosions in the middle of the night again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I say this much? I've always said you'll be able to tell when Iran is within months or a year or so of having a nuclear weapon, because in the middle of the night, things are going to start blowing up over there. Yeah. And all these other people said, oh, they can't get it. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
North Korea got one 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And these guys are 1,000 times more funded than they are. So,
yeah.
But we won't let it happen. I don't care who is in power in our government at the time. You won't let that happen.
Yeah.
You can't. And we know, but so
I think that's a really good point. I mean, when you think about North Korea, so one of the things, that's a great way to put it is, okay, so you don't think that the Iran leadership that has way more money, they have a bigger force around them. I mean, the IRGC is 200,000 people. The country's much bigger than North Korea. The resources are way bigger. They've got better connections with Russia and China. Well, North Korea has good connections with China, but specifically Russia and China, ties with both of those countries. So you're going to say that you don't think there's any chance of them getting a nuclear weapon. It's like, oh, okay. So we're not even going to think about the North Korea scenario and compare that.
Exactly. You know? I mean, of course they were going to get a nuclear weapon. Chant death to America, death to Israel, and all the other, and then have the other terror proxies in the world. Of course, they were going to get one. That's just, it's naive to think they weren't. Yeah. Now the date, it might not have been by now, but it would have been soon, very soon. Yeah. Are you going to take that chance?
Right. Exactly. So actually, I just saw this morning that France's ship got hit. I think just a couple of days ago when they launched all those projectiles, a French cargo vessel got hit. And it's actually said that 8 crew members were injured seriously on the French ship.
I hadn't heard that. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we just saw this morning, France is sending some warships through the Suez Canal towards that area. And so do you think that, I guess my first question is, why do you think Europe and France have been so reluctant to come in and help? That'd be the first question. And then the follow-up one is, what do you think these French ships are actually going to do?
Well, if Europe said or NATO said, hey, we're coming to help you right now, it would take a month for them to make that happen. We're the only people that can do this stuff right away. Yeah. They can't just launch the fleet tomorrow. It takes them preparation time. And the politics of it all, they have to be careful with the politics, but they can't just send ships. They don't have them ready to go. Yeah. They have airplanes, but they're not ready to go. They don't have as fast as ours are. We can deploy. We had 12 hours, 24 hours. We had to deploy from the States to anywhere in the world, anytime.
Global Response Force. So GRF for you acronym lovers out there. I know Diamond, the producer back there, needed an acronym. She was starting to shake a little bit.
No acronyms.
He hasn't said an acronym in 40 minutes. Is he okay? Yeah. 40. I think that was 48 hours response time, but you had to leave no later than 24 hours.
24, you're gone. You generated, and if you missed that number you're supposed to generate, you failed the exercise. Yeah. And that's the way, and as to why, so it's going to take them a bit of time. Why they're publicly not supporting this fully on this, it's still a bit of a question mark to me. I mean, we would support them if someone had threatened to kill death to Europe. Yeah. Death to Europe. Well, we would have.
Come here, sweetie. Come here, sweetie.
We got a dog barking here.
It's all right. Yeah,
she's our Florida dog.
She's getting excited about the death to Europe statement. Come here, honey.
But honestly, I think when the dust settles, there'll finally be a little more cooperation out of NATO than what we're seeing right now. Yeah. But they have their political battles there too. That's a touchy situation.
Sure.
And our support of NATO, we will always support NATO, and we may reduce our forces there. Gosh, we have about 1/10 now what we had when I was a lieutenant.
Yeah.
Right now, 1/10.
Right.
So if we cut that in half, we still have a fairly, and it's still not that big of a reduction compared to what we had.
Right.
So it's just disappointing. That
some dogs barking.
Sorry about. We brought our dogs from Florida, and they're doing their thing.
Yeah, they just got excited. Well, yeah, I think it is interesting to think about what the reasoning could be behind Europe. We've talked a little bit on the channel. I've gotten some information on the oil arbitrage out of Brent Futures. So the Brent Futures is a organization in London, and the quick and dirty of it is it was established after World War II, where the U.S. got to have the global reserve currency, but Britain, being smart, said, well, we want to arbitrage barrels of oil and determine basically the price of Brent crude oil. And so what they do for their services is they put a couple euros on top of each barrel. So each the price of oil that we see, there's a skim coming off of it from Brent crude, a couple euros every barrel.
I wasn't even aware of that.
Every barrel, yeah. And so the flow, as the oil flows, the oil has to be flowing and has to be being sold, right? And so they get whatever it is. Let's just say, for easy math, 2 euros per barrel of oil, right? So if there's 100 million barrels of oil, there's 200 million euros right there that they're getting. Then that flows right to London, right into the government coffers. They get to own that or tax that. I don't know. I'm not sure how it happens once it actually goes into those coffers. I'm not sure if it's the government gets all that or if it's a tax situation where it's a privatized organization, but they have a very dialed in incentive to keep as much oil flowing through the Strait of Hormuz as possible because they're shaving off a royalty off of every barrel. So to me, I was thinking like, well, it's kind of sick because they're kind of like, well, we don't really care if Iran gets a nuclear weapon. We just need they're like the crack addict. That's like, we just need our Brent Futures oil to keep flowing. I mean, that's pretty gross when you think about it. But obviously it's going to have some pressure on them, right? To just say, no, guys, no conflict. Everything is fine. Everything is okay. And then Iran's sitting there like, yeah, Europe, remember, you're getting this arbitrage. So you should be against this conflict. So you keep getting more and more of your arbitraged oil.
Yeah, I was not even aware of that.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, that's a good point. That's a good point to make. I honestly think the reason they're not stepping up to the plate is they're just a little too, brave's not the right word, but they're just trying to be so politically correct in this thing. And the world will be so much better off if Iran is a free Iran.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Everybody. And I don't know why there's a reluctance here not to make that happen.
Yeah.
We should have full support from the NATO and active support too from the very start, not just certainly positive words on it, but we're talking active support. We didn't need it. We can do it without them, but we need it would just a world effort here.
Yeah, for sure. All right, couple member questions that also super thanks came in for these questions. 215 Redskin says, "You're the best, brothers." Awesome. Thank you for that. That was super kind. Texas Aviator says, "Great stream. Appreciate you guys." Man, Texas is so awesome.
I love Texas.
And Texas Aviator is in pretty much all of our streams and giving us a ton of support. So thank you so much. Blue Devil says, "As always, thank you for the insight and continuing to keep us informed from a sensible perspective. Keep up the great work."
Thank you.
Thank you for that. High Desert Garden says,
was that Blue Devil from Duke?
I think it must be. That sounds like a. That
I was
sounds
NC State, but I love Duke.
Nice. This is High Desert Garden. Looks like they're sending a message to Trump. They say, "Trump, we don't need to deal with the IRGC. Just keep the blockade until the regime can't afford to operate. They'll fall out of power and Iran is free." So
that's our prayer right there.
Yeah.
The problem is those guys are just so hard lined. They don't care how much anybody else suffers.
Sure.
So,
right.
But you're right. You're absolutely right. That's the free Iranians have got to take this, or else what did we do all this for?
Yeah, eventually, but it could take a while. So if a deal comes about, that still leaves, I think personally, a deal comes about, get the global economy rocking and rolling again. Everybody kind of calms down a little bit. That doesn't mean that behind the scenes there aren't going to still be some things happening, internal fracture within the regime, and a deal that puts pressure on Iran to know that they don't control the Strait of Hormuz. Because again, and I think this isn't really spoken about a lot, it's an international waterway. Yeah, it's not Iranian territory, by the way. They're extorting the world. And they've just normalized it where they're like, and I think some people have thought, well, it's Iran's property that they're just controlling. No, it's not their property. It's essentially like someone saying, let's say Cuba is like, we're going to determine everything that flows between the waters between Florida and Cuba. We're going to determine all of that whole area. And it's like, no, Cuba, you might have some say, well, not right now, currently, because of the ties to Venezuela and how that's been cut off, the oil cut off from Venezuela, that free, cheap oil to prop up Maduro is gone. But that would be the same equivalent as Cuba saying we're going to control everything that flows in between this chunk of space between Florida and Cuba. Right?
Exactly. And to say they control it, oh yeah, they do in the respect that they're afraid something could happen. They're no more in control of that though than a man on the moon, other than their threats, and they might possibly hit a tanker. I mean, good Lord, we have the military, we have the ability, but they just could get a lucky shot off. So that's their only control, is the threats and the possibility of it. It's not like they've got a bunch of ships out there that can make something happen. If they did, they'd all blow up right now.
Right.
But they do control it in respect that they make it too dangerous to transit.
Yeah,
I hate that word control because
they don't own it.
They don't own anything. They can't control it except with threats and a chance of a shot.
Yeah, they're gangsters. I mean, it's like the cartel. The cartel's gonna just keep pushing, go against the rules. So the rules don't apply, right? They're gonna see rules written. They're like, oh, cute. Those rules are for other people. We break the law, we break the rules. That's what we do. That's what the IRGC has done for 47 years, and it's put them in power. But they're it's a house of cards type power, in my opinion. It's not one that's going to last a long time. Cool. That was from High Desert Garden. And then Another Day in Paradise says, you couldn't have a cooler father and son time than talking about flying these beasts, these fighter planes in the world.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. I agree with you 100% on that one. I tell you what.
That's awesome. Sunkissed Girl says, very happy I was able to catch this live. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for being here. Seriously, we wouldn't be successful on the Max Afterburner channel if it wasn't for all you all watching this. So we really appreciate it. And then just some insight into kind of what we're doing. These are a little bit different than the live streams I've done before. We're adapting, we're evolving. So you guys will keep the Max Afterburner channel, obviously, the daily videos. What we might do eventually, though, and we're, Diamond, the producer, we're working on this, and then Bodie's, part of this. This is the new studio. So you're seeing the beginnings of the new studio. It's not done yet, but we just wanted to come in and kind of start trying some stuff out. So you're seeing the beginnings of the new studio. It's going to be coming to life more and more. I might film some main channel videos in here, but this will likely also be where we start the Max Afterburner podcast. And so there'll be 3 separate things that you might see take place here over the next few months. And that would be the main channel videos, which you get pretty much every morning, breaking military news. And then live streams, which live streams might go back more. This is a live stream just because it's fun, but they might go back more to the live streams that I was doing before with the maps, with a couple other just briefs, maybe just more of me kind of updating you guys with information, breaking information coming in from Diamond. And then this will be the podcast. And so we'll have an actual podcast that we have Bodie on. We have some of the other folks that I've done fighter jet missions with, or, other fighter pilots from around the world, or we do some detached things where it's, basically Zoom style, but with me here in the studio doing a podcast with someone. So that's just an idea. You might see that coming at you. Those are kind of the 3 things we're thinking. But for now, we're going to do podcasts on the live streams. The live streams might go back to me doing my thing, but just want you guys to know kind of the focus there for the channel. But this will be the new studio that we start doing stuff in. And then some other exciting things that we'll probably save for another announcement, Diamond, unless there's something else you want me to announce to everybody. Yeah. Okay. Bodie, this has been awesome. Again, my favorite podcasts, doing the podcast with my dad is just so much fun. These are just going to be cool little time capsules we can always go back to and enjoy. And hope you guys all enjoyed it out there as well and got a little taste of some father-son fighter jet aviation. Oh yeah, there is one little thing I wanted to share. This is a meme because people were asking, what does it feel like to shoot the gun in a fighter jet? And I'll show you guys in a second, but I'll show Bodie first. This is what it feels like.
I love it. That's it.
This is
remember, I was trying to say this. It's not a pop. It's a burp. I mean, it's like a whale burp, or a burp, you know.
Yes, exactly. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great one. Appreciate you.